So this second example would be one that you would see on a calculator part of an exam, which means that the values that we're going to get are not going to be on our unit circle. So again, starting with the first one, the starting point is the same as example 1. We're going to want to get cos x by itself. So if we combine our like terms here, move the cos x over to get subtract cos x on both sides, add 4 to both sides, and then divide by 3. We'll get cos x by itself, and we get negative 2/3. Question is in radians. So we're going to want to get our answers in radians. Make sure your calculator's in radians. You're going to find your reference angle by doing cos inverse of positive 2/3. And cos inverse of 2/3 is 0.841. So if that's our reference angle, if we were solving this between 0 and 2 pi, we would say, well, cos is negative. That happens in quadrants 2 and quadrants 3. So we'll do, in quadrant 2, we would do pi minus our reference angle. And that would be 2.30. And pi plus our reference angle. And that would be 3.98. Those are our two answers between 0 and 2 pi. Now that's going to help us figure out all of our answers. One, it asks for the general solution, and it also asks for the answers between negative pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. So now let's think about this. For negative pi over 2 to 3 pi over 2, if we think about our unit circle, that would be going in the negative direction from 0 to pi over 2, and it'd be going in the positive direction from 0 all the way around to 3 pi over 2. Can you see that that would include all 4 quadrants? It would include positive answers from quadrants 1, 2, and 3, and a negative answer if there was any answer in quadrant 4. Now, so far, what have we found out? We've found out an answer in quadrant 2 and an answer in quadrant 3. So when they ask between negative pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2, our answers will be exactly the same, because that's an answer in quadrant 2, and this is an answer in quadrant 3. Sometimes you're going to have to rearrange your answers depending on what the domain is given, but in this case it happens to be the same. Now, for our general solution, remember our general solution, once we find our answers between 0 and 2 pi, and those are our two answers that we found between 0 and 2 pi, we can just add 2k pi to each of them. So again, the general solution, you find your answers between 0 and 2 pi. Then to each of your answers, add 2k pi if you're dealing in radians, where k is an integer. And that's your general solution. For part B, again, we're going to start by getting cosecant by itself. So I can get cosecant x by itself by dividing both sides by root 2. Once you've got cosecant by itself, then you can write the reciprocal. Reciprocal of cosecant is sine. So sine of x would be root 2 over negative 5. Again, it's not on your pie plate, so you have to go to your calculator. Notice this question is in degrees. So the first thing we're going to have to do on our calculator is go to our mode button and change things to degrees, and then do sine inverse. And again, when figuring out your reference angle, always use the positive values. Square root of 2 divided by 5. And we get 16.4 degrees. It says to the nearest degree, so to the nearest degree that would just be 16 degrees. Now sine is negative where? Sine is negative in quadrants 3 and quadrants 4. So if we did 180 plus 16 degrees, you get 196 degrees. And if you did 360 minus 16 degrees, you get 344 degrees. Those are our answers between 0 and 2 pi. Now, the question is saying, first solve it between negative 180 and 180 degrees. Well, if we think about our pi plate, that means that we're going to go in the negative direction from 0 to 180, and in the positive direction from 0 to 180. Our answers here are in quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. But they're not in this domain, right? Because our answers are past 180. So now we have to think, if we had that same answer with that same reference angle in quadrant 4 in the negative direction, can you see that the angle would be the same as your reference angle in negative degrees? And the one in quadrant 3 in the negative direction, can you see that you could go 180 minus 16 to get you 164? That negative 164 degrees is coterminal with 196 degrees. So in this example, our actual answers when we looked at our specific domain were different because of the domain that was given. It's still nice to find our original two answers from 0 to 360 degrees, because when we want to write our general solution, remember our steps for finding the general solution, we found our answers between 0 and 360 degrees. And now we'll add 360 times k. Where k is an integer. All right, try question 6 and 7.